I'm Charles Lee Knuckles, and this is my story. I was born in North Philadelphia in an area called the Badlands, and it's still called the Badlands. Has a high murder rate, and young men don't grow older than in their 20s there. It's like the year I moved out here, I think the murder rate was somewhere like 500, you know. And I was orphaned at 2 years old. My sister was just born. And so we went into an orphanage in foster care. And it was basically a nightmare. It's been hard for me to talk about it, but lately I've been able to because of the healing that I've gotten through my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And so my sister and I seem to draw like some really bad families. And we went back recently and saw our records from the orphanage, and it said that our legs were wobbly when we walked from malnourishment. I can remember eating food off of the ground as a kid, and I can remember people walking down the street eating something, and I would follow them until they discarded the wrapper, and then I would just like lick whatever was on the wrapper. I remember chewing gum off of the ground with gravel in it, and that's the way it was. I was literally starving to death in America in a foster home. We were sent home from kindergarten because we smelled like urine. The care for us was minimal. I remember at 5 years old, when I was 5 years old, I was ran over 3 times. I would just be set outside on a busy street and not watched. And I would run out in the street chasing something and get hit. But the third time was the most serious, and I was run over by a pickup truck. And I can remember the looks on the people's faces when they jacked the truck off of my body. And, you know, lots of people have memories of their childhood, but nothing like this. I can remember the surprise that I was still alive. I had to toughen up quickly because we went from foster home to foster home. And my last name was Knuckles. I think it was my 18th birthday. I drank at a graduation rehearsal, and I drank alcoholically immediately. And I drank, I passed out. And what I remember about that is that it gave me a ability not to remember, you know. And so it just, it was like oblivion, you know. And I can exist there, you know, where there's no thinking about my hardship, there's no pain, you know, but the bad part about it is you woke up, you know. And so I graduated from the alcohol because when I was in the Navy, I drank really heavily, and I was introduced to drugs in the Navy, and I did all kinds of drugs. I did every drug you can possibly name. But I fell in love with heroin because that was the oblivion again. That was like the no feeling, no thinking. You didn't have to cry anymore type high, you know. And I was lost in it. And the next thing I know, years have passed by. I spent 30 some odd years heavily addicted. I don't know how I did it. But I woke up in this town where I was, Chester, Pennsylvania, where I was living in an abandoned building. And I would go to City Team for food. And I can remember them looking at me because I had spent all my money on drugs, and when I got there, I was so hungry. I was like putting food in my pocket, and I had an empty tub, a margarine tub, and I would put food in there and jump back in line to get more food. And then I caught them watching me, and I thought, man, they're going to kick me out. There's nobody in here as greedy as me, and I was just waiting for the shoe to drop, but it never did. One day, I was doing my regular routine, and I walked around the corner to buy some drugs. I looked the part. I was 155 pounds, soaking wet, 6 feet tall, and really dirty and scruffy. And after I purchased the drugs, I was walking through this group of kids, and they were laughing, at my appearance. But by that time, I was used to it. As long as I could get home and do these drugs, I wouldn't feel bad. And I got a few steps away from them, maybe about 40 yards. And they shot me in the back of the head. And they started laughing. As I started blacking out, I can remember them laughing and saying to one another, look at all that stuff coming out of his head. And I woke up in Chester Crozier Hospital attached to all these tubes, and the doctor came in, and I said, Doc, are you going to take the bullet out of my head? And he said, we have to observe you for a little while. It's in a position that we don't want to mess with until we get the best people in. And when he walked out of the room, I looked across the room and I saw my bloody Army jacket. And I knew that the drugs were still in the pocket. I don't even know how I knew it, but I just kind of knew it. So I took all the tubes out, and I walked out of the hospital. I could still hear the nurse saying, Mister, you can't go. And I went to that abandoned building, and I did those drugs. And I just couldn't get the oblivion that I was looking for. I just couldn't get that blank spot I was looking for. And at the very end of the drugs, a huge depression just overwhelmed me. And I knew that someone had hung themselves in that room. That's how I got it. And so I tied a rope to the fixture that the young person had hung himself on, and I stood up on a stool, the only stool in that room, and I put the rope around my neck, and then I stepped off. I don't know how it happened, but the next moment that I was conscious of, I was walking in the front door of City Team. And I looked such a mess that I scared the receptionist. I can remember her backing down the hall, literally backing away from me, saying, Mister, you can't come in here. I don't know what to do with you. There's nobody here but me. Please go away and come back later. And I sat down and I said, lady, I can't go away. I'm going to die. And I'm sorry. The staff at that time, the guy that's doing my job that I have now, walked out of a conference and looked down the hall, and this is the same guy I thought was going to kick me out for taking too much food. And I didn't know what to expect. And he walked down to me, and I stood up, and he hugged me. And this was like the first human contact that I had had in years. Put his arms around me, and he whispered in my ear, we've been waiting for you. And that was the turning point in my life right there, you know, that someone would touch me, that someone would hold me. And as stinky as I was, he wasn't afraid. Well, at that particular City Team in Philadelphia, there's a door to the chapel, and right by the door is a bathroom, a set of bathrooms actually, and that's the bathrooms that the homeless people use before they eat their meal. And so when they come in, they've been walking around, and they use that bathroom really hard. It was so foul that nobody wanted to clean the bathroom. Nobody wanted to touch it. And one day they lined us all up. They lined all the men up, and they said, we need a volunteer to clean the bathroom. I was ready to take one step back. I knew the trick, and I had been in the Navy, and I knew not to volunteer. But my hand went up out of nowhere, and I had to look at it. I couldn't believe. And I said, I'll clean that bathroom. The words just came right out of my mouth. And I cleaned that bathroom every single day. I cleaned it so meticulously that the staff would avoid using their bathroom and come down to use that bathroom. And one day I was on my hands and knees cleaning behind the toilet. And I just came to the full realization that God was doing in me the same thing as I was doing in that bathroom. He was cleaning things out of me that would literally defy your imagination. He was touching me in places that had never been touched or cleaned before. And I gave my life to Christ right there on that floor of that bathroom, right from that toilet. He sent a guy from Wallingford Presbyterian Church down the city team. This guy visited me every Tuesday without fail. And one day he was there, and I said, Russ, I know what neighborhood you live in, and I see your car and everything. What would make you leave that nice neighborhood that you could be at right now to come down here without missing a beat, without breaking eye contact, and with dead seriousness, he said, because you're here. And it started to make me feel like I was a human being. You just don't know how dead I was inside. Where was I going to get that spark of life from? I decided right then and there I wanted to be a Presbyterian. God has a sense of humor. My first job, graduating from city team, was custodial. I was cleaning bathrooms. And I swear to you, I couldn't separate the work from the worship. And then one day, city team asked me, would I come out here and work? And I was like, man, I don't think so. It's California. It's pretty crazy out there, isn't it? But I was a guy who had a very small world. It just shrunk because of drugs and alcohol. Had not been and did anything, and this was a big leap. It took a lot more courage than I could muster. And God has a way of kind of cornering you. David said, you hem me in. He had a way of hemming me in and kind of like helping me make the decision. And it's been a long journey, but I am living the best life that I ever lived. I think it was worth it. Well, I live a life where I can give. I've taken for so many years, and I see it every time I get my Social Security statement. It comes in the mail. It's a big reminder. And for a lot of years in a row, it says 0, 0, 0, 0. I was a zero person. But today, I'm able to give. I give back. I give to so many people. It's just such a joy to just give.